Hi there, I'm Chris Noring. I work at Microsoft as a senior advocate. Today we'll do a Learn Live. It's called The Agent Awakens, building applications with GitHub Copilot and the agent mode. So if you haven't heard about the agent mode, this is the Learn Live you want to tune into. My name is Chris Noring. If you're interested in connecting with me, here's my LinkedIn. You can scan the QR code if you like. Right, on today's agenda, there are a few things we need to go through. We have roughly 45 minutes to finish this Learn module, because that's what a Learn Live is. We go through a Learn module from start to finish. First off, we'll talk about the GitHub Copilot agent mode, what that thing is. Then we'll go through the learning objectives. All Learn modules out there have a learn objective, and we will talk about what we will achieve throughout this course. Then we'll explore the power of GitHub Copilot agent mode, because it is really, really powerful. And then we'll talk about the application we're building. We call it the Octofit Tracker application. And then we'll dive into actually building that thing, a front-end, a back-end, and a database. Here is our application, so you have a bit of context, some domain knowledge. We are building an application for a fictive school out there called Mergington High School. The idea is that we have a couple of characters with us you might have heard of, if you've heard of things GitHub, Paul Octo and Jessica Cat, and that forms OctoCat. So the challenge here is that students rarely exercise. Have you heard of such a thing, right? What we want to do is to make sure that they sign up to PE classes, become more active and more healthy, but of course all of this needs to be fun for them. So the solution is to build this Octofit Tracker app, the front end, the back end and the database, and make sure also that we abide by any school policies in terms of tech or otherwise. There's a few key features as part of this that we want to have as part of the application, namely user profiles and activity logging, team competitions and a leaderboard, and personalized workout suggestions. We also want to have some kind of progress tracking so we see how things are going. So your task is to follow Paul's journey using GitHub Codespaces and the agent mode. And as part of this, you learn how to leverage this new feature with Copilot, and you will then build an application to make sure that we fulfill all these requirements, all of these key features. Right, so here is the actual Learn module. If you scan the QR code, you will be taken directly to it. Here you can see on the side here what it actually looks like, and without further ado, we'll jump into the browser. Right, we are now looking at the live Learn module called Building Applications with GitHub Copilot Agent Mode. Now, one of the first things we want you to do is look through the learning objectives, which are stating the following. Understand how to develop with Visual Studio Code IDE in a GitHub Codespace. You heard that correctly. We will use Codespace. For those of you who don't know what it is your super machine in the cloud powered by GitHub, which makes it super easy to install libraries and make sure that you have that machine and everything is ready to go. We'll also prompt. We will communicate with prompts, which means natural language text, and feed that into our Copilot, and hopefully it will spit out the code we need, but also take the actions we need, because that's a big new novelty with the agent mode, is that it can actually do things for you, like creating files, move things about, installing things, and so on. We'll also leverage documentation file that describes what this app is, what it should do, and any kind of information that we need to build the app fully. So that's really cool, right? So that we can see documentation working side by side with these prompts. And then you will get to see how GitHub Copilot Agent Mode will attempt to fix errors if there are any, how it will refactor code, but also to develop new features. With any new module, we want to hit start, so we're going to do that. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through each and every one of these conceptual units. I just want you to have a good notion of what's going on here. So in this introduction, you see a few things. And here you get to learn more about the agent mode. And then you get to interact with GitHub Copilot. And you get to learn the benefits of Copilot. And there's a few more conceptual units so you exactly understand all the different features of GitHub Copilot and how that works. And then we'll get to the interesting part for you probably as developers, namely the exercise where you get to build the application. So to get started with this, we need to go to GitHub and actually create our own repository version from a template. And once we do that, from that template or our own instance, we'll be able to kick off code spaces and we will be able to build the app from there. Okay, so imagine now that I have clicked the link in the Learn module. This is where I end up. This repository is called Build Applications with Copilot Agent Mode. And you can see as part of this README that we have a few interesting things. One is a big green button that says copy exercise. This is how we start our exercise. And once we've carried out that step, this gray button down here called Start Exercise will actually be enabled, and it is currently disabled. So what it's asking us to do is to right-click copy exercise. So let's do that. Let's right-click it, open it in a new tab, and what happens then is asking us to actually fork this repository, and it fills out a name. I have done this step already, so we're just going to go to my local copy because that's how we're going to continue. What happens once you create this is that an issue will be created. So let's have a look at this issue, because this issue will say welcome and it will tell us what to do essentially. So it's telling us all about the different steps that you should be taking. But from here on out, we'll go into here. And what we will do is to click to create a code space. We can also do so from within steps here. And this is one of the things as part of this exercise is that you go into the .github folder and look through the steps. And once you click through these steps, you'll see what we're supposed to do here. So at high level, we're talking about what is GitHub Copilot Agent Mode. So let's repeat that again. The agent mode is a new thing. You've seen Copilot, normal Copilot. You give it a text prompt, you get some kind of text back, maybe documentation, maybe code. You've seen Copilot edits, hopefully, where you see how we can edit multiple files at once. Agents is a new thing. The agent mode actually enables you to carry out tasks such as installing libraries, SDKs, run commands, move files about. So this is really a new thing that's really powerful. Now this thing here is saying to open things in code spaces, and this is clickable. And I just wanted to mention that we have a confirm step down here where we want to confirm that we are not operating on the original repo, but rather our copy, and this is important for the continuation of this task. So how we can create a code space then is to click the code here, and we can hit the plus button just like so. This will take a minute or two to set up our environment, but it's lightning fast once it gets going. I even think it might be faster than that. But yeah, so meanwhile, while this is setting up, and it almost looks like it's ready actually, while it does things in the background, we can open up a couple of things that we want to have open. One of them is the docs folder. This is for the context. This is descriptions of the project, but also describing the overall story. Very quick browsing at this. It's giving detailed instructions on project structure and more. If you're interested, definitely look through it so you are being inspired on your own part as you plan out your own project, hopefully after having seen this Learn Live. Now, steps is important. We have 5 different steps to carry out today. What we will do for the sake of ease of reading is to open up in a preview. We're going to do this, and this is how we're going to carry things out. We'll go through this README file. So first off, it's giving us various information about inline suggestions. If you haven't heard about those, this is when you type Control-I or Command-I and you see this Copilot window pop up. There's also the chat, which we actually could open already, like so. And we want to make sure that this chat is set to agent, which means we are now getting ourselves ready. Going through the steps, we have already opened the code spaces. We're in one. Let's see here. Right, so the next step here is we actually going to put ourselves inside of a terminal. And within this terminal, we hit Control-I, and we are now going to take this command, copy that, paste it in, and ask Copilot for how can I be creating and publish a new branch. Might take a second or two before it powers up, but there it is. Now it's giving us a generic response, which is interesting, but it's not really what we're after. Instead, we want to do something like this, in which we are saying, build Octofit app. Let's give it my own name. And by providing this context, Copilot will now remember this branch name that I'm suggesting. So I'm going to kick this off. And now it says, awesome, thanks. At this point, we are switching from hitting the play button to hitting the run button, because now we actually want to run the commands. So if you are with me here, if you look at the terminal, you will see how it's now, the branch in red here is called build Octofit app today. You can also type git branch if you want to see which branch we're on. And we see it clearly indicates that it has created a branch and it has put us in that branch, and it's even published a branch. For next steps, we're actually done with step 1 of this exercise, so we're making good progress. And let's put this in preview mode also, like so, make it easy to read, especially when we want to copy paste our prompts. So now what it's saying is that we will create the application setup, we will run the application setup, so we will get directory structure, Python requirements, things around Django, things around MongoDB. So we'll take this first prompt. Make sure that the agent is in agent mode. It is. We paste this. So now it's saying roughly create this initial structure, set up the backend virtual environment, requirements txt, and so on. And now it's figuring out what to do, supported by the docs folder, but also supported by the prompt. And it will show the command it needs to do. So the first thing it thinks we need to do is to create a directory structure. That sounds fair enough. You can see here now how it's creating Octofit tracker, but there's also a backend folder and a frontend folder. And the next step is to create a virtual environment. Again, all we need to do is to press the green button to continue, and the command will be run for us. And now it's created the virtual environment, but it hasn't actually put us in the virtual environment. So let's see. It's still thinking, and you can see that at the end of the sentence, because it says, next I'll create a requirements txt file in the something something. So yeah, we see that it's still progressing, and now it's telling us to do source, which means it will activate the virtual environment. This is important for Python applications, so they are isolated, so we don't install things globally, and it ends up installing all the requirements by the pip install command. All we need to do, again, is to just hit the green button. Yes, we want to allow it to do things. And you can see here in the terminal how things kick off, and it goes pretty fast. Compare that to a local machine, and I bet you any day of the week the code spaces will be faster, unless you got a super machine. So we give it a few more seconds just to do the things, and if you wonder where it is done or not, on the right side here at the bottom you can see this progress bar spinning around. So while we wait for that to finish, now it looks like the terminal is done, and you can see how that communication happens back to Copilot, and it says the initial steps are now complete. Let me know if you'd like to proceed to do other things. And yes, we want to do that, but we want to take our next prompt here. And just shortly what the prompt is saying is, based on the example MonaFit tracker app in docs, so now it's referring to the fitness tracker markdown file, set up the additional configuration for the Django app, okay? run make migrations, and so on. As usual, paste that in, run that, and wait for things to finish. And it already tells us that, hey, you know what, Chris, I'm going to run this start project. And we can actually follow it a little bit to see it's kicking off. This is an interesting callout. You might see the green symbol that looks like a square with a filled circle in it. This is a sign that there's something here that I need to accept. So by pressing keep, that's exactly what's going to happen. Right, so we've kicked off this command already, and now we are pressing again the green button. And this time around is running a touch command, which will end up creating files that we need. And it's quite fast, as you can see, and there's a progress from 0 to 100%. And now it's working on the settings file. There's another command for us to run. Okay, so once we've run that command, the next thing, our next order of business is to install the database. And luckily for this, we have another prompt. So now it's kicking off this command, and it's telling us to run these sudo commands. Okay, great. Let's run these. It is quite fast. I just want to point that out. This is way faster than my local machine. So I'm very happy to be inside of a code space. And it should finish shortly at this speed, and it has. Fantastic. It still says working on the right side here, so we just want to make sure that it's all happy. Successfully installed. Great. Let's move on. Let's start the service. And now it's telling us to run sudo service MongoDB start. Okay, fantastic. Starting database MongoDB. Fantastic. And there's another step here. It wants to check the status. And the status says thumbs up, okay. That's really great. And if you remember, there was a migration command up here. We just want to run this again now that we have our database up and running. Should paste that in the terminal, of course. And now we are seeing very happy, okay looking signs. And that means we have finished the database setup here of step 2. So what we've done so far is to do our initial scaffolding of the app. We've installed a lot of dependencies. We're creating our Django application. We have installed our database and even run our first migration. Now, as part of step 3, let's see what we're about to do. We need to initialize the database. We need to create the actual database within MongoDB, and we need to update some application files. And lastly, we need to populate the database, which means that the backend layer is going to come quite far in this step, but it will only come to completion by the end of step 4. We're still on step 3, so please be patient. Right, so the first step we're going to do is to initialize and create the database. Again, we take our prompt, paste that in. So now we're asking for a command to create our database. It's thinking about it, and it should produce some kind of statement that we should be able to run. And here we have the statement, and all we need to do is to click the green button, continue, and that should be run. And it's connecting to the database. Okay, fantastic. And now we are trying to run this command in the database to evaluate that we actually have a database. And now it's telling us all the different collections in the database. It's telling us that they are called leaderboard, teams, users, workouts, and activity. Fantastic. That means that we have the table structure in place. It also tells us that in the bottom right here in the chat that, Chris, these are the collections I have, but it's always nice to verify in more than one place. Now we need to update the application files for the Django project. And this is just so we do the mapping between the database tables and some Python classes, which will make retrieval or any kind of read or write very simple using the Django framework. We give our agent a little bit of time to analyze what it has, because it needs to do some changes in more than one file, I believe. And it's first giving us the current state, which could be interesting, and then it should proceed to tell us what to do about it. And now it's telling us I will actually proceed to do these changes, and you can see the agent working. You see this red button, and yeah, it's already finished, so I'm going to hit keep. And now it's telling us to keep again, keep. And there's one more file, I believe, that it needs to change. 96%, almost there, we're excited. Great, looks like all the files are updated. Just a mile-high overview. Here are the views, and you can see how the views here, for example, on the workout view set in the bottom here, how it's calling workout objects all, which means that it's finding all the objects or all the entries around workout. And you can see the same thing for the leaderboard, for activity, and for teams, and so on. So this is really our mapping towards the database. We see that there was one more file that it had to do something with, and we can just press keep here, providing we are happy with the changes until everything is done. Let's scroll to the bottom here to say, let me know if you'd like to proceed. Yes, I would like to. It's opened quite a few files for us at this point. Let's see if we can close some down. Right, so now there's another activity, which is to populate the database. This is some seed data that we'd like to call it, some initial data to make sure that when we look at our application, it actually shows something around teams, activities, and users, and so on. We've come to the last step of step 3, which is to populate the database. So we're going to copy this command, and which would then migrate data inside of our database, so it should be populated. We're giving the agent a chance to think about what to do, which should involve creating a population database with data in it, and also run that same file with the data in it and make sure that that gets inserted into the database. So you can see here how it's reasoning on our right side to saying I need to create test data, okay, and I also need to make sure that I populate a file full with data. So now it's going through the populate DB file to make sure it's creating all the things. And you can also see that because it's seed data, one of the first things it's doing here on line 17 is to start dropping data from various collections. So if there's data before, it makes sure that this is the only data that exists. And it's halfway through. So once it's done populating the file, it should be creating the migration. And we just tell it to keep things. And now it's thinking a little bit again, so hopefully it will now show us a command to make these migrations. So now it's actually saying, well, Chris, you're doing this wrong because you're in the wrong folder, but it has this self-healing capability. So now it's actually telling us what to do, so we end up in the right folder. And now we're getting a execution error that says no module named Django, and if this happens to you, it simply means that your virtual environment hasn't been started. And again, it will self-heal and say to you and say, Chris, you got another problem here, which means you don't have your virtual environment started. And now it's saying no such file or directory. Let's see where it is. Source Octafit Tracker Backend. Okay. Octafit Tracker Backend, VNB, Octafit Tracker Backend. And we can stop it if we feel like it's on the wrong path, and we can even do this. And we can say this command didn't work. I'm in the wrong directory. And hopefully it can now give me some ideas of what directory I should be in. And just to make sure I'm in the right root directory here. Yes, we are in the root of the module. So now it's saying source. Yeah, all happy days. It's running the migration. Let's see, we didn't get any issues of any sort. No, it's saying activity, leaderboard, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that was actually the last of step 3. As you saw, there were a few issues, but no worries. GitHub Copilot agent mode had your back, and that's also really good news, because as we all know with these demos, it always looks like they go perfect, so this is an excellent example to learn from. So, as we start step 4, our first activity here is to paste in this prompt where it essentially says, let's set up the code space for the URL, restart the server, and test the API. That's great, but I wanted to call out that there's a couple of pieces here that we need to replace, namely with our code space's name. And we can find that at the top in the URL section. That's called probable space computing machine. So all of that name needs to go there within these square brackets. What we can do meanwhile, though, is copy this and paste it without running it. But just remember that we need to replace this value, so we need to go to the URL here, grab this value, all the way here. Let's see, we want to make sure there's the first one, and there's the second one. Okay, great. Is that the full name? Yeah, okay. We see where we need to replace because of the square brackets. Okay, now we replace the first issue, and then we go into the next one. Like so. Yeah, that should be it. Just make sure that you do this correctly so you don't keep a square bracket lying around. And this should think about it and go into the correct file and replace. And now we should just go in and edit. So part of this is used as the base URL, so to set that. So 90%, 92, almost there. And now it just replaces what this base URL should be. This is something that's going to be used so it knows where to find things. And now it's also going through the settings file. We see that that one is spinning and it's currently going through. And it's allowing a host, which means it will tell us what hosts are okay and not. And then it ends up saying you need to activate your virtual environment. So let's do that. Now it's trying to do this within the backend folder. Let's go in there. Let's try that again. Right, now it's happy. It's even giving us a command how we could do this if we had been in the root, so I didn't actually need to do this, but it's good to see that it has your back. If a command goes wrong, it suggests what to do instead. I can actually humor it just in case it has more to do, so let's do that from this height. And yeah, it actually said that we should be installing the libraries again. It's not needed, but for the sake of humoring it, let's just do it in case there are more commands that should result as part of this prompt. It doesn't say anymore, but let's give it a few more seconds just to make sure that everything has been done before proceeding. Yep, it looks like it was everything. So the very last step in this step 4 before we move on to the React application is to launch the Django backend. And the way we can do that is either to start the server in a normal way via the terminal, or we can click the user interface. Let's start by clicking the user interface, and I'll show you the other way of doing it too. So we've clicked the button for starting up the Django backend, and as you can see, it works. We have an API route, and if we want to look at a specific user, we can do so. We see we have a list of users, the ones we've added in our previous step, in step 3, as we populated the database. We can also look at, let's see if we have any teams. Yeah, we have a couple of teams. Great. We feel quite confident that we have a working backend. We have a nice user interface that we can do with get, or if we also want to do some kind of post, we could be trying that as well. That takes us to the end of step 4. Wasn't that exciting? Let's just summarize all our wins so far. We've been able to use the agent mode to create an application structure, install all dependencies, create our Django backend application, set up the REST framework, populated the database, and you could all see how that was working. It was loading the data from the various collections. And now we have one exciting step left, which is the React framework, the frontend, the thing that the users will actually be interfaced with. And yeah, there are a few steps here that we want to run, because currently we don't have a front end. It's quite empty. Our front end folder is very empty, but don't worry, after a few steps here, it will not be empty. Let's run that. And ideally now it should be creating the front end directory content, and it will also install a user interface or CSS library called Bootstrap to make things pretty. And it will also import that Bootstrap into something called index.js, which is the entry point for our application. And in this case, we're using React. So I will actually show you that. But for the time being, it is actually telling us to first create the directory. We actually have that, so that shouldn't be a big thing. And now it's telling us to run npx. And for those of you who don't know so much about front-end applications, that is a command in Node.js that enables you to call something out there, a library that will actually scaffold the front-end for us using React. So let's do that. It wants us to press Y for proceed, so yes. And now it ends up installing a bunch of packages, and it should also be scaffolding some files as part of an initial React application. And it also says it's installing React DOM, which we're going to use for routing, and it will install React scripts. Those scripts will help us to run the app and maintain the app and so on. This always takes a few seconds, but you can already see on your left side here how the front end is being populated with files. So we just sit tight waiting for it to finish. It's pretty quick about it. It added over 1,000 packages in roughly 40 seconds, and it should just be cleaning things up. And happy days. Front-end directory has been successfully created. And now it's asking to install Bootstrap. Which is doing, and it's installing the React Router DOM, which is also doing. And now it's generating some edits here for the sake of import to make sure that everything is being used. And I believe that was all the outcome from that first prompt, so it did quite a lot for us. And now of course, we want to maintain this application, right? And for that to be possible, it needs to create components to handle the various resources. Activities, leaderboard, teams, users, and workouts. They all need their own component for the sake of maintainability. So let's do that. Take this prompt. And it should get busy at creating a subdirectory called components. It doesn't exist yet, but it will soon figure out that that is the case. And now it's laying out the plan for us. It's saying, I will be creating this, I will be creating that. And now we're just waiting for the agent to actually carry out things. And this is part of what I mentioned initially, part of the heavy lifting that the agent does for you. Of course, you can do all of these things manually, but having an agent that does things that you've done a million times for you is just good productivity. It's still in mid-sentence. We're going to wait for it to finish. There. I'll start by creating the missing components, it says. All right, agent, please do your best. So now it's starting with the imports of these components, and it should sooner or later be scaffolding the components directory with the files in it. So this is nice. It's setting up the routing, I believe, in real time. And great. And now, if you see on the left side here, you see that the components subdirectory under source was just created, and it's starting to add files. Let's do keep to keep it going. And it ends up scaffolding all the needed files, so every single one of our collections now have a corresponding component. All the required updates have been made. Fantastic, and that means we are on one of the last steps of this presentation. And let's start up the React applications and check the output. That's the name of the title for this prompt. Right, so you might actually have something similar to this user interface now with activities, leaderboard, teams, users, and workouts. So as you can see, we have a working application, and we could add all of these instructions now for the sake of making the Bootstrap look a little bit better. So we're just going to accept our edits here to our application. It's almost done. Right. So last step of this is that we're going to make everything look a bit more pretty. So we're asking it to use various Bootstrap components such as forms, cards, modals, so we get this nice looking interface. And it just will then go into our components and start adjusting the CSS for all of these to leverage various CSS classes. And now it says it will proceed to update app.js to use Bootstrap for navigation, headings, and other. So we're waiting for it to finish. So we're sitting tight a little bit. And this is all giving us a nice looking navigation, just like we want. 92%, it's almost done. Let's see where the cursor is at. You can always track that yellow color to see where it's at in the code as it's adjusting. It's almost there. The things are getting exciting. And there are some edits for us to press keep. And I believe there is one more step in total as part of this. And the very last step here, just so we read it out, is to add some nice coloring. We always want some nice coloring, right? Now we are waiting for the agent. Okay, we didn't. Let's see, let's do keep here. And yeah, we are on the very last mile of this presentation today, and we are just so excited to see how this full stack application have been built from database to backend to frontend, and now the very last command of making it pretty by adding some nice coloring. And it's just working, and you can see that on the left side how it's doing this micro adjustments on the components for the sake of appearance. And yeah, let's go in here and see if we can start accepting the changes. We can. Let's say keep. Yeah, let me know if there's anything else. And by that, let's go into the application to see what it looks like. You saw a little bit of that before, but we've done some further user interface adjustments, and for the sake of the application, let's make sure that it works. We see our data being loaded from the database, cycling, CrossFit, swimming, running. We also see a leaderboard with various scores. Great. We see how we have two different teams. We have a set of users, Metal Geek, Thunder God. Have to say I really love these names. And we also have workouts. So we can see that the application is working from front-end to back-end. And now let's go back and present some links, because there's some call to actions. Right, folks, you should be very proud of yourself. You should be patting yourselves on the shoulder. You have built a working application. It has a front-end. It has a backend. It's even got a database with data in it. Isn't that fantastic? And all with the help of GitHub Copilot. You might have something that looks like what you're seeing on your left side, or if you spend some extra cycles on the app because you just love this exercise, you might have something that looks what you're seeing on the right side. Right, so where can I learn more? We have some resources here around GitHub Copilot and agent mode, so please scan the QR codes to learn more, because I'm sure you are as excited as I am about this agent mode. Huge congratulations to you. You've done something awesome and amazing. You have not only built an app, but you are part of a record attempt for a Guinness World Record. So please confirm your participation by scanning the QR code that you see. That will let us know that you've been part of this. And please also share your success on social media using the hashtag AISkillsFest. And thank you so much for attending. Please help celebrate your success with us. Tag us on social media with AI Skills Fest. And there is also more. We have the Microsoft Learn platform and Microsoft certifications where you can gain credentials and skills. And now the question is, what will you learn next? Well, this is part of the AI Skills Fest. We will run a myriad of activities from the time period of the April the 8th to May 28th. You can find all of those experiences in the link below. You don't want to miss any of that. And here are some next steps. One exciting thing I want to mention to you is the agents hack. If you haven't heard of agents, agents are the next thing after using LLMs, large language models. These are AI that does something. So please consider participating in the agents hack. Check out the link here, the AKA link, and also some resources of how things work, how to submit solutions, and many other things. So what will you learn next then? Well, register for your next session and keep hacking. We want to see things being built. Again, agents hack, 8th of April to the 30th. My name is Chris Noring. Thanks for watching.